The first sound in this story is the scream of a 79-year-old woman in a parked car. The second sound, 2 years after that, is the laughter of an entire country. Somewhere between that scream and that laughter, 8 days in a hospital disappeared. Skin grafts disappeared. 700 earlier burn reports disappeared. So did an offer from McDonald's. $800. What survived was a joke. An old lady spilled her coffee, sued, and got millions. Her name was Stella Liebeck. She was not driving. She had never sued anyone in her life. She did not demand millions. And millions she never received. But for 30 years, her name became a synonym for greed. How do you turn the victim of a giant corporation into the villain of her own case? You don't have to disprove the evidence. The evidence only has to disappear from the version most people hear. Albuquerque, New Mexico, February 27, 1992. The morning begins as ordinarily as a catastrophe possibly can. Stella is 79, a retired department store clerk. That morning, she and her grandson stop at McDonald's, where she buys a 49-cent cup of coffee. No argument, no crazy risk, no demand for millions. Just a grandmother, a grandson, and a cup of coffee. Her grandson parks the car, and this matters, because millions of people will later be certain that Stella was racing down a road with coffee between her knees. In reality, she is sitting in the passenger seat of a motionless car. Inside a Ford Probe, there is barely a flat surface anywhere, and no cup holder. As Stella lifts the lid to add cream and sugar, the coffee spills across her lap. Her cotton sweatpants soak it up. The fabric doesn't let it run off. It holds the scalding liquid against her skin. In archival footage, she remembered almost nothing of that moment, only trying to get out of the car, and the pain. The spill sends her to the hospital, but Stella was not the first. A dark corporate archive, folder after folder falls onto a steel table until they fill the room. Over the previous 10 years, McDonald's had received at least 700 reports from people burned by its coffee. And here it's important not to lie. These were not 700 lawsuits. They were 700 registered burn reports, from relatively mild to third degree. Among the injured were children. There were infants. A number of those claims McDonald's settled quietly. More than $500,000 in total. But 700 is a comfortable number. It doesn't scream. It doesn't cry. It doesn't ask for painkillers. It doesn't have a daughter who loses income while caring for her mother. So let's open one of these folders. This was not redness, not a few blisters. This was the destruction of tissue. The burns covered 16% of her body. 6% of her body had third-degree burns, through the full thickness of the skin. Her thighs, her buttocks, her groin. Stella would spend 8 days in the hospital. Surgeons would cut away the dead tissue, then take healthy skin from other parts of her body and graft it where her skin had been destroyed. She would lose 20 pounds, down to 83. Recovery would stretch across nearly 2 years. That is what was hiding inside one unit of corporate statistics. That is the human life that would soon be compressed into 2 words, spilled coffee, and that is exactly the part America never really saw. After the hospital, Stella's family does the most ordinary, least cinematic thing imaginable. They write a letter, no demand for millions. They ask the company to check the temperature of its coffee and to cover the costs. Stella's treatment and the income her daughter lost caring for her mother, about $20,000. The medical bills alone came to roughly $12,500. McDonald's reply fits in a single number. $800, not $800,000. 800, about 6% of the medical bills alone. Stella later said she was not in it for the money. What the record shows is the sequence. She asked for about $20,000, got $800 back, and then she filed suit. And here Reed Morgan enters the story, a Texas attorney who looks at Stella's file and realizes he has seen this story before. Only the woman had a different name. In 1986, Morgan represented another client with third-degree burns from McDonald's coffee. Investigating that case, his team measured coffee at 38 restaurants around town. Of the 12 hottest cups, 9 belonged to McDonald's. Morgan also deposed the company's quality control manager, Christopher Appleton. According to Morgan, Appleton acknowledged that McDonald's knew about the danger of serious burns and had no plans to turn down the heat. McDonald's resolved that case for $27,500, closed the folder, and kept its coffee temperature policy unchanged. Now a new folder lay in front of Morgan, a different woman, the same kind of burns, the same high temperature policy, the same McDonald's. The case could still have ended quietly. Before trial, Stella's team offered to resolve it for $300,000. That was a negotiating position. In reality, her side was prepared to accept about half, roughly $150,000. McDonald's refused. Before the trial, the court sent both sides to mediation. The mediator, a retired judge, studied the file and recommended McDonald's pay $225,000. McDonald's refused again. By refusing both proposals and taking the case to trial, McDonald's appeared confident in its defense. And honestly, there was logic to it. McDonald's sold about 1 billion cups of coffee a year. Coffee is supposed to be hot. Stella put the cup between her own knees, took off the lid herself, tipped it herself. In front of the company stood an 81-year-old woman asking to be compensated for coffee she had spilled on herself. To McDonald's, this did not look like a dangerous trial. It looked like a case that was impossible to lose. The corporation was wrong about exactly one thing. It could anticipate what the jurors would see, not what the evidence would make them feel. August 1994. 12 jurors walk into a New Mexico courtroom. The foreman's name is Jerry Goins. He admits afterward that at first he could not understand why he had been summoned over a spilled cup of coffee, which makes Jerry the perfect man for this case. He is not yet on Stella's side. He is on yours. The defense opens from strength. Coffee is supposed to be hot. Stella spilled it herself. And, the lawyers add, her age made the consequences worse. Older skin is thinner, more vulnerable. And this matters. Stella will not be declared an innocent saint here. The jurors will find she made a mistake. The question is different. Should a mistake with an everyday drink destroy human skin in 3 seconds? A thermometer takes the stand. McDonald's operations manual required coffee held at 180 to 190 degrees Fahrenheit. At the top of that range, a third-degree burn can form in about 3 seconds. At 160 degrees, it takes about 20. It sounds like a small difference, but for a person in soaked clothing, it is the difference between jumping up in time and an operating table. And then McDonald's defense does something remarkable. Its firm hires a law student named Danny Jarrett to measure coffee temperatures around Albuquerque and compare them with McDonald's. He goes from place to place, buys, measures, writes it down, and the numbers come back with a small problem for the defense. Even the hottest competing coffee was about 20 degrees cooler than McDonald's. The defense sent a man out to survey the competition. He came back with the strongest evidence against his own client. But the most dangerous witnesses for McDonald's had not even started talking yet. The witness stand. Christopher Appleton, the quality control manager, the same man Reed Morgan deposed back in 1986. Appleton acknowledges that McDonald's knew about the serious burns, acknowledges that the company never consulted burn specialists, acknowledges that McDonald's decided not to warn customers that injuries this severe were possible, and states that the company does not intend to change its rules. Then the defense calls a human factors expert, paid $15,000 for his work on the case. He explains, McDonald's sells about 1 billion cups a year. Against that background, 700 burn reports are statistically insignificant. The math is hard to argue with, as long as the number has no face. But this number now had Stella's face, her 83 pounds, her grafted skin, her 2 years of treatment. The expert had 1 billion cups. The jury had photographs of one human being. Juror Jack Elliott goes home that night and warns his wife and daughters never to drink hot coffee in the car. Another juror is named Betty Farnham. She explains afterward what she heard behind the expert's words. There was a person behind every number, and the corporation was not attaching enough importance to those people. The jurors who came to dismiss a ridiculous coffee lawsuit no longer see a ridiculous coffee lawsuit. They see a company that took the warnings, paid the claims, closed the folders, and kept pouring. Now it's your turn. Stella put the cup between her knees herself, took off the lid herself, spilled the coffee herself. McDonald's chose a temperature that can cause third-degree burns in seconds, knew about hundreds of injuries, never consulted a burn expert, refused to warn its customers, and offered a burned 79-year-old $800. How do you divide the responsibility? 50-50? 70-30? All of it on Stella? Give me your ruling in the comments and lock it in. August 18, 1994. The jurors returned to the courtroom. Here's what the court actually found. The jury assigned 80% of the responsibility to McDonald's, 20% to Stella. Compensation: $200,000 reduced to $160,000 for her own share. Then the jury decided what punishment fits a company that sells 1 billion cups a year. Not compensation for Stella. Punishment. The jury set punitive damages at roughly 2 days of McDonald's coffee revenue, $2.7 million. And at that exact moment, Stella began losing her own story, because that is the number that would make the headlines. Not $800, not 700 reports, not 3 seconds, $2.7 million. The judge afterward cut the punitive award to $480,000, about $640,000 in total. Both sides appealed, then resolved the case confidentially. Press reports put the final amount under $600,000. The exact figure is unknown to this day. Stella never received $2.7 million, but the public would remember her as the woman who got millions. And the next day, a reporter drove to that same McDonald's. He bought a coffee and lowered a thermometer into it, 158 degrees Fahrenheit. One measurement is not proof the company changed its rules nationwide, but in that particular restaurant, the coffee was suddenly noticeably cooler than the temperature the company had spent a week defending in court. McDonald's lost the trial, but another trial was coming, without a jury, without the medical photographs, with little power for Stella to answer the version spreading across the country. The first local article about the decision ran about 697 words. The wire service cut it to 349. Some papers printed 48, and with every cut, Stella's burns got milder. Stella herself got greedier, and McDonald's got more innocent. In 48 words, there was no room for the parked car, for the 8 days in a hospital, for the 700 reports, for the $800 offer, but $2.7 million fit beautifully. TV hosts started laughing. On-air commentators described her driving with the cup between her legs, something that never happened. Strangers wrote her letters, accusing her of things she never did. Stella answered some of them on local television. It changed nothing. In the public version of her life, she was behind the wheel, barely hurt, demanding millions, and walking away rich. Her daughter said her mother felt people were coming at her from every side. "My mother was made the villain in this story," she said. "It's like bullying." Then came the parodies, the songs, the jokes, the Stella Awards. Mock prizes for the world's dumbest lawsuits. Their most famous cases later turned out to be fabricated. Fake lawsuits named after a woman whose real lawsuit most of the country encountered, only in a stripped-down version. Stella never became a millionaire. The settlement money helped pay for a live-in nurse. She died in 2004 at 91. People were still laughing. And the cruelest twist of this story is not the size of the award. McDonald's lost the trial, but won the story America told for the next 30 years. The jury saw the evidence and handed McDonald's 80% of the blame. The public never saw the evidence and handed Stella all 100. She wanted no one else to go through what she went through. Instead, her name was handed to people proving that victims ask for too much. So who really won here? Stella. 8 days in a hospital and the rest of her life inside someone else's joke? Or the corporation that paid, while a stripped-down public story placed all the blame on Stella? Now deliver your verdict. $2.7 million in excessive punishment? Or the only number big enough to make a company selling 1 billion cups a year finally notice one burned human being? Write your decision in the comments, because the court judged this case once, and America is judging Stella still. And subscribe. Next, we reopen the case of the man who took Pepsi to court over a fighter jet.